Synonyms.
Look at these words.
Beautiful, pretty.
Words beautiful and pretty mean the same.
Let us look at some more examples. Fast, quick. Large,
Big,
tiny, small.
words in these pairs have the same or similar meanings.
Words that mean the same or have almost the same meaning are called synonyms. A word may have more than one synonym.
Now that was a great video reminding us of what we've learned this week. Hi, my name is Mrs. Waller and welcome to YouTube Live, sponsored by Danville Church-based tutorial program. Today we will continue with synonyms, how to better your writing. We will be focusing on using synonyms, replacing dull words, and then using descriptive words, making power sentences.
Let's take two sentences. A hippo is a big animal. Whales are big animals. Are whales and hippos the same size? Well, let's see. A whale is 94 feet long, and a hippo is 4 feet long. So, are whales and hippos the same size? Nope. Whales are much bigger. In our two sentences, big doesn't really tell us the size of the animal. We can't use big for both sentences. What are some words that mean the same as big? Large, huge, enormous, gigantic, massive, tremendous. Those are all synonyms of big. Those are much more descriptive than just big. So a hippo is large animal. Whales are enormous animals. Using synonyms can make your sentences more powerful, less boring, and way more descriptive. Let's try this. Kangaroos are big animals. They have big back legs. Baby kangaroos are small when they are born. They are the size of a lima bean. Kangaroos are amazing. Some of these words could be changed. Let's see. Big animals. We could change that to large. Kangaroos are a large animal. That sounds much better. They have big back legs. Big again. Let's change that word. Maybe athletic and strong. They have athletic and strong back legs. Baby kangaroos are small when they're born. Well, how small are they? We could change small to a more descriptive word. Let's see. Maybe tiny? Baby kangaroos are tiny when they are born. They are the size of a lima bean. Kangaroos are amazing. Now amazing, we can't use that word anymore. What's another synonym? How about interesting? How about fascinating? That sounds a little better. Kangaroos are fascinating.
Now remember, a synonym is a word that has the same or nearly the same meaning as another word. And let's see what happens to our favorite nursery rhymes when we take some words and replace them with their synonyms. Fill in the blanks below. We're going to read some sentences, but I'm going to read the sentence first, and then we'll come back, and then we're going to write in the missing words. So we're going to take turns. I'm going to read through it, and then we're going to come back and then fill in the blanks, okay? O King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. He called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddlers three. Now, let's go back and change the synonyms. Remember, we're making power sentences. So we want to make this more interesting. So Old King Cole was let's use bubbly, was a bubbly old soul. And the bubbly, what word would we use? Let's use age. A bubbly aged soul was he. He shouted for his pipe, and he called for his pot, and he yelled for his fiddler 3. Okay? So let's read that again with our new power words. Old King Cole was a bubbly old soul, and a bubbly aged soul was he. He shouted for his pipe, and he called for his pot, and he yelled for his fiddlers 3. How does that sound? Okay, you might could think of some other synonyms to use to make this even more exciting or more interesting. Let's try it again. Let's go with Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Okay, so Humpty Dumpty, the word would be sat, but we're going to change that word. So we're going to use perched. So Humpty Dumpty perched on a wall. Okay, let's go to the next line. Humpty Dumpty has a great fall, but we're going to use another word. We're going to say an impressive fall. Humpty Dumpty had an impressive fall. All the king horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So let's start it over and let's read it with our new words. Humpty Dumpty perched on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had an impressive fall. All the king horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So see, a synonym, a word that has the same or nearly the same meaning as another word. Let's do one more. Little Jack Horner. Little Jack Horner sat in a corner eating his Christmas pie. He put in his thumb and pulled out a plum and said, "What a good boy am I." So now we're going to put in some power words. Little Jack Horner. So what word would we use? Let's use a word, let's say tiny. Tiny Jack Horner. And the next line says sat, but we're going to use another word for sat would be perched. Perched in a corner. The next line says eating his Christmas pie. What word could we use for eating? That would be a good synonym for eating. What about munching? Munching his Christmas pie. Okay. The next line says he put in his thumb. So instead of put, what do we want to say? Let's put placed. He placed in his thumb. And then the next line said, and pulled out a plum. So which one do we want to use to replace that? Pull. What about drag? And drag out a plum. Or what about this one? Yank out a plum. Okay? And he said, "What a good boy am I." So what would we use in place of good? A synonym that would mean good. And he said, "What a fine boy am I." Okay, let's read it all together. Tiny Jack Horner, perched in a corner, munching his Christmas pie. He placed in his thumb and dragged, or we said yank. So he placed in his thumb and yanked out a plum and said, "What a fine boy am I." So you see, the synonyms, words that have the same or nearly the same meaning as another word. That's all for today. See you next time.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to YouTube Live, sponsored by the Danville Church-based tutorial program. Today, we're going to continue on with quadrilaterals. Remember earlier in the week, we dealt with 5 types. The first one was a parallelogram, rectangle, then the square, a rhombus, and a trapezoid. Let's get started with our lesson again. We're dealing with quadrilaterals, which we dealt with earlier in the week. Quadrilateral is a polygon with 4 sides, but also we have to remember that it is a closed figure and it has 4 sides, which are usually straight lines. We talked about the parallelogram, and we also talked about the rectangle. The parallelogram has parallel lines. This line MN is parallel to line PO. And parallel lines run in the same direction. And they're equal distance apart completely. And they are not perpendicular. Perpendicular means that they're crossing each other. Perpendicular lines have 90-degree angles. Also, when you look at O and N, line ON, it is parallel to line PM. All right? And opposite sides are parallel and congruent, because these two are congruent and they go in the same direction. And the 2 black lines are marked, which I will mark with the red line, are going in the same direction, and they are congruent and parallel. And also we discussed earlier this week that opposite angles are congruent. Angle O is congruent with angle M. I can either say angle O, or I can say PON, which would be an angle. Angle PON is congruent to angle PMN, or I could say angle O or angle M. They would be equivalent. So just remember they are congruent. And then also angle N, you see the 2 marks, and angle P, you see the 2 marks. Those are congruent. So angle P is equal to, because congruent means the same, is equal to angle N. That a rectangle is a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4. And also it has 4 right angles. Angle M, angle N, and the angles are 90 degrees. Angle O, 90 degrees, which is a right angle, and then angle P, which is 90 degrees. And also all the angles add up together to be a total of 360 degrees. Well, let me write it over here so you can see it. 360 degrees. And as you can see, In this rectangle, opposite sides are parallel. The lines are running in the same direction. Line MN and line PO. As you can see, the hash marks show that these two lines are congruent. Also, line NO, which I'm marking with red, and line MP, they are parallel and congruent as well. And remember, all the angles must be right angles with a rectangle. A square is a rectangle with 4 congruent sides. Remember, the word congruent means the same or equal to. And it also has 4 right angles. So, as you see right here at D, angle D, that's a 90-degree angle. Angle E is a 90-degree angle because these are right angles. Angle F is a 90-degree angle. And angle G is a 90-degree angle. And remember, all the sums of the angles will give you 360 degrees. And you get that by 90 plus 90 plus 90 plus 90, or 90 times 4 gives you 360 degrees. And the same with the rectangle. Now, knowing that all the sides and angles are congruent, also we have parallel lines. Parallel lines run in the same direction and they're equally spaced apart. And as you can see, line DE is parallel to line GF. And that's why we have this one hash mark indicating that. Now we have line GD is parallel to line FE. And you can see it with the hash marks there also. Now, the difference between a rectangle and a square is that a square, all the sides are congruent. Congruent, once again, means the same or equal value. So pretty simple. A square is a rectangle with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. But you got to remember, a rectangle is not necessarily a square. Also, students, what type of polygon would a square be called? That's correct, a quadrilateral, because it has 4 sides. Let's move on to the rhombus. The properties of a rhombus: all sides are congruent. Once again, congruent means the same. Opposite angles are congruent also. And we know opposite angles, A would be opposite of C, D would be opposite of B. Now, dealing with quadrilaterals, would a rhombus be considered a quadrilateral? Yes or no? Once again, students, you're correct. It is yes, because it has 4 congruent sides. It has 4 sides, the key thing. But these sides would have to be congruent. All right, so a rhombus is a quadrilateral with 4 congruent sides. And it's notated by these hash marks that they're all the same length. And so DC, line DC would be the same length as CB, and the same as BA as AD, line AD. The properties of a rhombus includes the following. All sides are congruent. All sides are congruent, the same size. Opposite sides are parallel. Let me mark the opposite sides, and remember they run in the same direction. So line AD is parallel to line BC. And then line AB is parallel to line DC, or you can say CD, doesn't matter. All right, and once again, opposite angles are congruent. What does congruent mean? Congruent means the same. All right, so If this angle right here is 90 degrees for D, then B would have to be 90 degrees. All right, and it's marked by this hash mark right here. So the angles are the same. Let's not make it so much 90 degrees because they're not necessarily right angles. Remember, 90 degrees would be right angles. So let's say, for instance, this one would be, let's make it 100 degrees. And this one would be 100 degrees because they're congruent. So if those two are 100 degrees, and we know the total of that rhombus all the way around would have to be 360 degrees. So we got 200 right here. So we write 200, and we know the total has to equal 360. So we're going to figure out the measurement of angle D and the measurement of angle B. So 360, we're going to subtract 200 from 360, and that leaves us with 160. So if we divide that by 2, we know 2 goes into 160 80 times. So that would make the angle B 80 degrees, and angle D, because it's congruent, would be 80 degrees. And we add all 4 of those numbers, we would get a total of 360 degrees. And as you look at the rhombus, it looks more like, even though some people would call it a square, depending on how you look at it, it looks like a diamond as well, a diamond shape. But the difference in the rhombus and the square is that a rhombus doesn't necessarily have right angles. All right, this could be 100 degrees, 100 degrees. This could be 80 and 80. And also, as you look at the rhombus, if you look at the diagonals, which this line right here would be a diagonal, and this line going this direction from A to C would be called a diagonal. And as you see, as the diagonals cross each other, they are perpendicular to each other because they form 90-degree angles as they intersect. See that? Where I'm marking it red, this angle is 90 degrees and this angle is 90 degrees. So a rhombus is a parallelogram whose diagonals are perpendicular to each other. Let's move on to our last and final one, which is the trapezoid. Our final quadrilateral, and remember it's a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides and it is a closed figure. So if I count these sides, I have line ON, which is one side, line MN, which is another side, that's 2, line MP, which is 3, and line PO, which is number 4. All right, so that has 4 sides, so it would be classified as a quadrilateral. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly 1 pair of parallel lines. Remember, parallel means to run in the same direction, and when we mark this, the only parallel lines you will see is line MN and line PO. As you can see, the other 2 lines are going in different directions and they are not parallel to each other. This would be a trapezoid. So this week we covered 5 types of quadrilaterals. The first one was the parallelogram. The next one was the rectangle, the square, the rhombus, and the trapezoid. And they're all considered quadrilaterals because they all have 4 sides. Okay, everyone, I hope you all enjoyed the quadrilaterals, and I hope that this year you will be better at knowing the 5 types of quadrilaterals that we deal with on a daily basis. You all have a great week.